Downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andrew T. Evans, with special guest, Chris Stefanick.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, Cotton Bowl edition of the Buckeye Leafcast with your hosts. I am Mr. Andy Evans, and he is the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan, folks. That's right, Mr. Chris Stefanick.
Hey.
Mr. Stefanick.
Yes, sir.
Woo! How we feeling, baby? We got a big, huge bowl game coming up against the 8th-ranked Trojans. Cotton Bowl, man. Are you excited for this or what?
I am.
Are you seriously excited?
Well, at this point, we're recording this on Christmas Eve. I'm excited about tomorrow morning, but after that, when I think about what's the most exciting thing I've got going on for the next little bit, it's tomorrow morning and then the Cotton Bowl. So.
Two things to look forward to. In fact, I might be more excited. I think I am, quite honestly, about the Cotton Bowl. This is my Christmas Day coming up, man.
I hear it, man.
I'm amped up about this one. The 5th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, Chris, 11-2 overall, Big Ten champs, taking on the 11-2, 8th-ranked Pac-12 champion USC Trojans. Once again, Friday, December 29th, kickoff is at 8:30 p.m. in Dallas, Texas. They're going to be playing it there at AT&T Stadium, Jerry World as it's better known. And let's go back just for a second, Chris, and talk about how the Buckeyes, just barely missed out getting into the college football playoff. But because of that, some people maybe thinking this is a consolation game of sorts, which I guess it kind of is. But, Chris, if you're going to have a consolation game, I think this is probably the one New Year's Six bowl game that people are talking about, obviously aside from the Rose and the Sugar, which are hosting the semifinals. I mean, you've got two Power 5 conference champions taking each other on. And what a storied history, too, between USC and Ohio State. I mean, this is a complete throwback to the good old days of the Rose Bowl. And I'm fired up, man. I can't wait for this game to go down.
Yeah, no, I agree. It should be a hell of a game, and it's outside of making the playoffs. It's not as good as we could hope for. This is like the number one bowl game. That's not a playoff game. It's versus another blue blood program, a historic matchup, and it's on a Friday night, the 29th.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird, but I actually kind of like it. I kind of like it because it's like I don't, I can stay up late and not have to worry about it. It's, Saturday's the next day, and it's not going to have a lot of competition. It's going to have the spotlight all to itself. On like New Year's Day, as great as New Year's Day is, there's like game after game after game, several running at the same time. And, they got spotlight to themselves on the 29th Friday night, and I think that actually was a good thing overall for me personally as a fan, and just for the Ohio State program, getting to take all that in. Absolutely.
The fact that you get the game out of the way before New Year's, I kind of like that too. And once again, it's on a Friday night. Granted, I got to go into work the next day, which I'm not exactly thrilled about, but still, Friday night game. Yeah, this is going to be obviously marquee matchup that everybody is going to be tuning in to watch. And yeah, I think this is just going to be a great game, Chris. I think it's going to be high scoring. It's going to be a shootout. I think you're looking at least in the upper 30s, maybe lower 40s for both teams. And I think it comes down to a field goal either way, quite honestly. I do not see either team dominating one another. And once again, a high scoring shootout. You look at the USC Trojans, Chris. They've got a guy that some people are saying is going to be the number one draft pick overall in this upcoming 2018 NFL draft in Max Darnold. Max Darnold. Sam Darnold.
Oh, I like the name Max Darnold.
This kid is...
His mother missed an opportunity there. He should have been Max Darnold.
Let's just call him Max, just because of that, right? Max Darnold, quarterback for USC. This kid is something else, Chris. And, you take a look at what he's done for USC this year. I mean, he's got 3,700 passing yards, 26 touchdown passes, has thrown 12 picks, 3 more interceptions than what he threw last year. But, 63% of his passes complete, and he's at a 151 rating. had a great season. Deontay Burnett, his favorite receiver, almost 1,000 yards receiving this year with 9 touchdowns. Tyler Vaughn's another kid who's caught a lot of passes, 690 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's got Steve Mitchell Jr. with 644 and 4 touchdowns. So they definitely like to sling the rock, but they can run the ball too. They've got a kid in the backfield, Chris, Ronald Jones II, who had a great year, over 1,400 yards. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was a third-team All-American. So, we're talking about a USC team that, aside from Ronald Jones, though, they don't really have anybody they can lean back on to run the football, unlike the Buckeyes. But defensively, Chris, when you talk about USC, let's face it, we're talking about the Pac-12, right? And the Pac-12 generally does not like to play defense. So, to me, I think this game comes down to whoever's going to have the ball last, but is Ohio State's defense, which I think is way better than USC's defense, going to be able to contain Ronald Jones II and Max, better known as Sam Darnold?
Yeah, that's a good question because, and I don't know. I mean, you look at what Iowa, how they were able to pick apart Ohio State's defense, or Baker Mayfield. I think Darnold, he's going to have some opportunities there. The linebackers have shown they can't cover in space. The blueprint's out there to how to attack this defense. You go after them with tight ends and running backs, and I haven't really seen them shut that down, although I guess they kind of did versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a team that likes to do that, and they really held them in check there. So maybe they've made the adjustments they need. Let's hope that Shiano has that. I mean, he's got to know it's coming, that they're gonna try it. But they're not gonna. This is as good of a quarterback as they'll face all year, which is saying something since they did play Baker Mayfield. So it's going to be interesting to see, can that defense shut them down? If the defense can shut them down, then I think this has the potential to be an easy win for Ohio State. Now I say that, I also am going to say that we know how many mistakes this Ohio State team is prone to making. So it's like when I look at USC and Ohio State, they're both very similar teams, both conference champions that were jilted by the playoff committee by a non-conference champion getting in over top of them. They're both highly talented, both have really balanced offenses. And both, you don't know what you're going to get from one week to the next, right? Both of them make a lot of mistakes and lose games that they shouldn't lose and play games tighter versus teams that they shouldn't because they're making all these mistakes. Not because of talent. They both were superior to the teams they played all year long, but because they make mistakes. So this would be a great game as far as like seeing two really highly talented teams, two teams loaded with NFL talent, two teams that have really good quarterbacks. Much about Chase here. He's statistically has been all right. Well.
Whoa! You're cutting out severely again.
Okay. As much as we like to harp on JT or the Buckeye
Start
Nation,
back with JT Barrett.
Statistically, he's one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback Ohio State's ever had. So the chance that he comes out there and has a really good game is not small. That he could come out there and really have a nice way to end his career on a high note with a big game. So it's just a matter of, can JT avoid those mistakes that we've been talking about? The USC defense, while they're not great, they do lead the nation in sacks, 43. And they have 24 takeaways, which is a lot. JT has not always been the greatest when he's under pressure. So we'll see. Barrett, he didn't have a ton of turnovers overall in the year, but he's thrown 8 interceptions in the last 5 games, Andy. If you just look at the last 5 games, it's like, holy smoke. So, he's averaging almost, 2 a game.
He has piled up some picks.
Versus, USC. And the defense is not able to shut down the Trojan offense. This could be bad. You said you see it as a close game. I could see this, honestly, as a blowout in either direction. If USC comes out and has a stinker, makes a lot of mistakes like they've done, they've shown they can do that, and Ohio State doesn't, I could see that being a big Ohio State victory. Likewise, if we come out and we're seeing 10, 15 unforced errors from Ohio State, which we've seen them do, and USC plays a clean game, they've got the talent to embarrass Ohio State. They're certainly way more talented than Iowa. This might be a more talented team than even Oklahoma. They're extremely talented. So it's just they did not put it together, just like Ohio State. I mean, I'd take Ohio State's depth chart over Oklahoma's. But they just weren't as good of a team when at least on that Saturday. Ooh. So at any rate, and then at the same time, if they both come out and play clean, then we could have a really nice game that comes down to the wire, or they both come out and they're laying eggs left and right. We could have kind of an ugly game that comes down to the wire. The upshot of all of that, is I have no friggin' idea what's going to happen in this game. I could see anything is on the table. Yeah. Anything is on because these are two really unpredictable teams. So anything is on the table.
Well, the one area that does concern me about Ohio State's offense and the way JT has played these last few games, and yes, his propensity to throw some interceptions, is the fact that USC, second in the Pac-12 right now, top 15 in the country in passes intercepted. They've picked off 16 passes so far this year, and they've taken 3 of them back for touchdowns. So if JT does throw a few picks in this game, which is like you said, we've seen him do in the last few games of the season here. I mean, he threw 4 against Iowa. He threw 2 against Michigan State. He threw 2 against Wisconsin. It could be a long night for the Buckeyes, but if we get the JT Barrett that we saw against Penn State, then I think Ohio State is going to win this football game. I really do. But once again, I see USC. I mean, they're fast. Like you said, they're a talented football team. I mean, these are some kids that can play some football. We know that USC is going to come with it. But the one thing that I think in this game the Buckeyes have going for them is the fact that their defense is much better than USC's defense. However, USC, number 1 in the Pac-12 right now with 43 sacks. And once again, top 15 and tied for second. Top 15 in the country, tied for second in the nation with
interceptions.
Yeah, interceptions with 16. So those 43 sacks, Chris, that's good right now for number 1 in the country.
Right.
Excuse me. Number 2. So this is a Southern Cal team that gets after the quarterback. But as we saw against Wisconsin, Ohio State's offensive line right now, dude, just playing outstanding right now.
It's true.
Against the Wisconsin team that was tops in the conference in sacks, Ohio State did not allow 1 sack in that football game. So if we can see an Ohio State team that's offensive line played that well against Wisconsin, if they play like that against Southern Cal and they give JT some time to throw and Ohio State's able to run the football effectively with both Weber and JK, I think the Buckeyes pull out a win. But like I said, I think this is going to be a close football game, Chris. And like I said, man, throw back to the good old days of the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, when it was Ohio State, USC in the Rose Bowl, or at least the winner of the Ohio State-Michigan game taking on the winner of the USC-UCLA game for the Rose Bowl. I mean, for years that was the case, especially back there in the 70s and parts of the 60s. And I think this is just going to be one hell of a football game, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I think it may come down to turnovers. We've talked a lot about turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
JT with 8 interceptions in the last 5 games. USC with a team that generates a lot of turnovers. One thing they do, you mentioned the sacks being a really high number. Not only do they get sacks, but when they don't get there, they're great at getting their hands up and deflecting balls. A lot of those interceptions have been tipped balls that tipped at the line of scrimmage that fell into their hands. So can JT avoid that? Now, you make a good point with the offensive line played just amazing on both running and passing. JT, for the most part, had all day back there to throw. So can they do that versus these Trojans? On the other side of the ball, Darnold has shown to throw a lot of interceptions, but unlike JT, where JT started off the year very few interceptions and as the year went on got worse, including 2 in the last, throwing 2 interceptions versus Wisconsin. Darnold, he started off throwing a lot and got better to the point where he's only picked off twice in the last 5 games. So in the last 5 games, you got 2 for Darnold, you've got 8 for JT. So 4 times as many for JT in the last 5 games. So turnovers could be where this game is decided. But, I'm hoping that obviously JT can come out and put together a solid performance and, end his historic career on a solid note. I'll take a win. Whether JT looks ugly or bad, I'll take a win. But
absolutely.
It'd be good for JT, for everything he's given for the program. It'd be nice to see him go out with a big game.
It would just be a hell of a way to start off 2018, a hell of a way to end, some people feel, a disappointing season in 2017. However, Chris, 12-2, Big Ten champs, great wins throughout the season, had a couple of bad ones there, obviously, but you then beat USC in the Cotton Bowl, and more than likely you're probably going to finish in the top 4 in the country. I'd say that's a pretty damn good season to have.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that the opportunity is there for this to be a good season. Now, if they go out and get embarrassed by USC, I'll probably be disappointed at that point. They'll be Big Ten champs, which doesn't always happen under Urban Meyer, and they will have that victory over Michigan, but that will be a little bit of a disappointment. But if they come out and win, especially if they come out and win handily, I'll be pretty happy.
What if they come out and lose in a close game, but it's been a good game, but they do end up losing by a touchdown or a field goal, but it's one of those things, like you said, where it comes down to, the last couple of minutes of the game, and USC's driving, Ohio State has the lead, USC scores, they go on to win the game, but, in its own right, the game has been a good game. Would that still be a disappointing season? Or would you be like, okay, Ohio State, they played well, they played tough, but they lost there, in the last waning minutes of the game. Would that kind of be a little bit better than getting blown out, or is a loss a loss?
It's definitely better than getting blown out, no doubt about it. Still probably disappointed at that point. I think their season, as far as this being a successful season, probably comes down to, do they win this game or not? If they don't, they kind of underachieved, They 3 losses, and they will have still gotten some of their goals, but they will have left an awful lot on the table, I think, if they don't do that. So I think it comes out of this game. No pressure, folks.
None at all.
No pressure, JT.
That's right, JT. If you're listening to this, buddy, no pressure.
Your whole career comes out in this game, JT. 4 years.
No pressure, none whatsoever. Don't worry about all the accolades that you've done in your career here at Ohio State, JT. Don't worry about all the Big Ten records you've set, some which may never be broken, or at least not for quite a while. If you don't win this game, you're a piece of crap, and I'm not going to like you anymore. That might be a little harsh. Of course, I'll always love you, JT. OSU all the way, baby. He bleeds scarlet and gray. You got to love him for that. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Well, and you mentioned before about, and we've talked about this, Ohio State making mistakes. Turnovers would be one thing. Penalties would be another. Right now, Buckeyes dead last in the conference and one of the worst teams in the country as far as penalties are concerned. 94 penalties on the year, Chris. That is 9 more than the second worst team in the conference, and that was the worst team overall in the conference in Illinois. So you've got 9 more penalties than the worst team in the entire conference. You're the best team in the entire conference. 94 penalties, 913 yards. If Ohio State averages that, they cannot shoot themselves in the foot with the turnovers and the penalties. Those could be 2 huge factors in this Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's not just even turnovers and penalties. It's like special teams gaffes, dropping punts, getting punts blocked, getting field goals blocked, giving up kick returns. It's like snapping the ball over the quarterback's head.
Yeah.
It's, you name it, like missing wide open wide receivers that it would have been a touchdown, but you totally miss him, or it's just one thing after another. If it was just one thing, I think Urban would have fixed it by now. But it's different players, it's different things. Where, what are you going to do? Like bench the whole team? It's like because it's a different guy every week is making mistakes. So yeah, when they play clean, you get what was it 49-3 versus Michigan State? That's what a clean Ohio State can do. which as a Michigan State team that's even after that brutal defeat at the hands of our Buckeyes are still a top 15 team. They're that good. That's what Ohio State can look like when they were clicking. That's a team that can beat anybody in the country. But, is that the team we're going to get? I have no confidence that that's the team we're going to get. Odds are it's not the team we're going to get because that's been the exception, not the rule.
Right. And really the Wisconsin game, I mean, aside from JT throwing a couple of interceptions, once again, they didn't allow any sacks. I think they ended up with, 7 penalties maybe in that game. So I think they were below their average. So they cleaned it up a little bit. And don't get me wrong, penalties are going to happen, right? But a team that's actually worse than Ohio State with 104 penalties on the year for 940 yards, the team they're about to play in the Cotton Bowl, USC. So this is a USC team that's even more undisciplined than Ohio State. Sam Darnold's thrown more interceptions than JT Barrett, and right now the Trojans are at a +1 turnover margin for the year. Ohio State is at a +2. So USC not exactly unprone to making mistakes. They're going to make some mistakes too. So if Ohio State can force Sam Darnold to throw an interception or two, an obligatory pick, and really bottle up Ronald Jones II and put some pressure on Sam Darnold to either get a sack or to throw a pick, USC might come out and shoot themselves in the foot too because they have a propensity to making mistakes.
Yep. Yeah, it's who knows what we're going to see.
My thing is this, Chris. Ohio State needs to effectively run the ball. They need to get about 150 to 200 yards rushing in this game with at least 3 touchdowns on the ground. And let's hope to see a nice, clean JT Barrett-style game from him. Like you said, a Michigan State clean game. If they can play a Michigan State-style game, Ohio State, I think, could win big. But I think the Buckeyes come out and they run the ball well. They can establish a little bit of control. And as long as JT Barrett can keep it in check and really go out on his last game ever as a Buckeye, this Ohio State team is going to win the game. So my final score, dude, Ohio State 42, USC 39.
Wow. Yeah, you got it as a shootout. I could see it. That's the thing.
Shootout.
I could see a shootout, and I could see a defensive struggle. I could see a blowout for Ohio State. I could see a blowout for the Trojans. I literally have no friggin' idea what is going to happen in this game. I will give a prediction.
Okay.
So I will. I don't feel good about it, but I will give a prediction. Like I said, anything can happen.
Well, man, don't completely make a prediction if you really don't, aren't feeling good about it. But yeah, just kind of what's your overall gut right now telling you about how this game's going to go?
I think both teams are going to score. I think both teams are going to make mistakes. And I think that Ohio State being the better team is the better team, and that will allow them to come out with a win on a game that is not, they never put them away. It's a game that's always in doubt up to the very end.
Yep.
But Ohio State gets a win. That's what I'm predicting.
Okay.
I've got it 35-28.
Okay. All right. So fairly high scoring as well. I like your pick. I like your score. Let's just, this should be one hell of a football game. I'm amped up about it. Once again, Friday, December 29th, 8:30. ESPN is televising this one, so it should be a good one, baby. Here's one more thing to throw out to you, Chris. Ohio State has not beaten USC in 7 straight games. The Trojans have a 7-game win streak on the Buckeyes, and Ohio State has not beaten the Trojans since Woody Hayes was their head coach in the 1974 Rose Bowl. It's time to pay these bastards back.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up there, Andy. What were you saying? Something? I didn't catch that.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Oh, are you serious?
I'm not serious, no, unfortunately.
Oh. You bastard. It is. It's time to pay these bastards back, Chris. Ohio State has not beaten USC in 7 straight games, and you got to go back to when Woody Hayes was the head friggin' coach, is the last time that Ohio State beat USC. It's time to turn that around.
Man, I was trying to put that out of my mind, and thank you so much for not allowing that to happen.
No, Chris, we have to remember. We have to keep this in mind. I hope those kids out there, that is the one thing that Urban is driving into their head, is that Ohio State has not beaten USC since 1974. I wasn't even born yet. That's how long it's been, and I'm no spring chicken, sir. I'm up there in a few years. I wasn't even born yet the last time that Ohio State beat these bums. So it's time to go down there to Dallas, and it's time to kick their ass.
I hear you, man. I'm right there with you. Let's do it.
That's what I'm talking about, brother. That's what I'm talking about. Folks, this has been another edition of the Buckeye Leaf Cast, Cotton Bowl edition. Thank you for downloading the show. It has been brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christie clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. And it's also brought to you by Columbus Wired. For your fill of Central Ohio sports and beyond, be sure to check us out at columbuswired.net. And it's also brought to you by my man, the Intergalactic Buckeye Fans. Other stuff going on, aside from the Buckeye Leaf Cast, Choice Conversations. If you want to have yourself a choice conversation, let Mr. Stefanick know, because he is around. He is doing his thing. And I'm telling you what, you want some enlightening stuff, Mr. Stefanick, they got to go to you for it.
Oh, well, thanks, Andy. Yeah, I appreciate that. So, yeah, I have a personal development podcast called Choice Conversations. You can find me at choiceconversations.com. It's we're closing in on the end of 2017. It's the time for New Year's resolutions. Come on over and listen to my show, and I'll help you to turn 2018 into the best year of your life. So I'd love to be a part of that. choiceconversations.com.
And you want to know a great way to really kick off 2018 is by kicking USC's ass. Friday, December 29th in the Cotton Bowl, baby. There you have it. Be sure to check Chris out at choiceconversations.com. Also hit him up on Twitter at choiceconvo. You can check me out on Twitter as well at Andy's Wired. So, Chris, there you have it. Friday night, December 29th, 8:30 kickoff. Number 5 Ohio State, number 8 USC for the Cotton Bowl. And on that note, Mr. Stefanick, let's leave like we always do. OH.
I-O.
Go Bucks.
I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town, to the stadium to hear the band, by far the finest in the land. I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town.